In this video, we're going to look at how writers can generate a short story outline by using a process I call the 10-question method. Now, before we get started, if you want to get an email with a timestamped overview every time I release a video like this, then head over to deliberate-practice.com and sign up for my email list. There's other content at that website, but I'm also going to be including thank you goodies for email subscribers as a thank you for signing up. And related to this video, I'm going to create an AI workflow which you can take and paste into the AI that you like using the most, whether that's ChatGPT or Claude.ai or any of the others. And that workflow will basically get the AI, when you run the workflow, the AI will ask you these questions, and all you'll need to do is just go, okay, I want to write the story about this and this, and you'll answer them. And the AI just asks as a brainstorming partner and a glorified secretary. So all the answers and all the story ideas and character ideas that you come up with are yours. They're not generated by anything else. And in my opinion, it is almost the best way of using AI. Provided you set the context correctly, which is what the workflow is there for, it makes coming up and working through these processes really simple, and it's brilliant at doing it. And if you want to go for a walk around the block and have a think for half an hour, it'll be sat there waiting for you when you get back. So sign up for the email list, and you'll get hold of that, and you can try running this for yourself. The 10-question method. Now, generating story ideas is a topic that I'm really rolling with at the moment. The next few videos are going to be all to do with generating story ideas. And this has been triggered by questions from a couple of my students in the resource that I'm building called the Writing Vault. I'll speak more about that at the end of the video. One of the things that I'm going to do an article about in the next 2 weeks or so is talking about creating a long-term idea habit and what you need to do to support that and make it something that happens every day, and it's like clockwork, so you're always working on ideas. So there'll be a video on that in the future, so look for that. But for this video, I want to show you 10 questions that, if you answer them, will lead you to quite an interesting and detailed story overview. A quick note, none of the questions that you're going to answer are specifically about genre or individual plot points, but these kind of story elements are often implied by your answers. So especially if you're working along the lines of stories that you like, you'll come up with ideas that are naturally related to the genres that you like to read and that you want to write in. Once you've created the overview using these 10 questions, if you like the story that's being chiseled away by answering the questions, you can then develop that idea further and layer on story types or plot events via story models. And this video, we don't have time and space for doing that, but in the next couple of videos, I'm going to take some examples to answer these questions. And first of all, there'll be like case studies showing you what kind of stories can come from answering these questions in more detail, but I'll also go beyond that and layer on story types and plot events to give complete, quite detailed outlines that you could then create a story from. So let's dive straight in. Question 1. What emotion or feeling do you want your reader to have at the end of the story? Now, I've got a video on my channel called Brandon Sanderson, Outline Backwards, Write Forwards. This idea came from there, and this came from one of Brandon's lectures at BYU, so you can go and check those out. They're great resources, although one caveat, they are fire hoses of information, so you have to take notes and work on the things that are immediately relevant to you. But that's the first question. You come up with the emotional feeling you want your reader to leave your story with. Is it sadness? Is it satisfaction? Is it wonder? Is it, oh, I was fooled by a twist? Is it intellectual curiosity? Is it happiness? Is it an inspiration? And these emotional feelings that you want your reader to have will probably be related to the kind of stories that you read. So do think about the stories you read and what kind of emotions, feelings do you get at the end of those stories, and then aim to do the same thing. So be guided by the kind of stories you enjoy. At some stage, I'll write or I'll create an article on my thoughts on the concept of inverted commas writing to market. I think you should write and be guided by things that give you inspiration or light you up or that you resonate with, rather than trying to write just to make money. That, by the way, in very broad strokes, the person who writes just to make money is a hack, and the person who writes stories that they want to communicate the kind of emotions that they like when they read stories, you're striving to be an artist. I know which kind of writer I prefer to be. Which kind of writer you prefer to be, that's up to you. So, question 2. So, what kind of scene will deliver the emotional impact that you just thought about in the previous question at the end of the story? Is it a confrontation, a revelation, a choice, a reunion, a loss, a discovery, death, birth? The kind of emotion you want to trigger will naturally be connected to certain kind of events more than others. So pick one that you think, yes, this will trigger that emotion. And by answering these 2 questions, you're probably going to point as to what story type you might be creating an overview as you work through the 10 questions. Even just these 2 questions give quite a lot of story information if you know what to look for and you're looking to make those connections. Question 3, who is the character who drives that final scene? This is probably going to be the main character of the story, and at the end of the story, in the final scene, that emotional payoff should come from the choice the character makes, the action they take, realizations they get, things they uncover. You know the kind of things that happen in the stories that you like. You should be looking to create the same kind of emotional payoff and using the same kind of scenes, and you'll have an understanding of what the character, who the character and what the character does will be for that final scene. And so if it's like a mystery kind of scene and it's somebody who's uncovered a criminal and they're going to be carted off to jail, then that will give you an idea as they're involved in law enforcement in some capacity. Those kind of things. You can you need the character who drives the final scene, but that can also, when you pair a character with that kind of scene that you've chosen, that will also give you some insights into who the character is and maybe what the main character does. Question 4. What incident starts the main character on the path to that final scene? Now, you probably are familiar with this term, but that's otherwise known as the inciting incident. And in good stories, the conclusion to a story should suggest the opening scene or the inciting incident. So if you've got a conclusion to a story, let's go with a mystery idea. If it's a detective uncovering a killer, then the opening to the story should be the crime being committed or the detective getting involved. Or if the conclusion is 2 lovers reuniting, then the start of the story should be the 2 lovers breaking up. I just said about the murderer. So question 5, next question. Why does the main character choose to walk the path that will take him from the opening scene to the final scene? Or is that path chosen for them? So what's their motivation or compulsion to get involved in the story? Or how are their choices constrained in a way that forces them to go on the path in the story? So think about that. And what you're starting to do now is we've got the kind of story we're telling, we've got the ending, we've got the starting sequence, the starting scene, we've got the main character. Now we're starting to flesh that main character out from like a cardboard cutout or a stereotype of a hardboiled detective or broken-hearted lover or whatever it is, or however you're thinking of who the main character is. But now we're starting to flesh them out as real life people, and that will carry on with the next 2 questions. Question 6, what does the main character want in that opening scene? What is their immediate conscious goal? So have a think about that, what their motivations are, why they would choose to get involved, or if they're constrained by external circumstances in some way, what is their goal that will take them to the final scene and remove those constraints. Question 7. What does that main character actually need? Now, need isn't the same as want. They can be similar, but the need can refer to a deeper issue. So, for example, if we go with a detective, the want could be to capture the criminal who's committed whatever crime it is that the story is about. But the need might be that the detective had a similar case like this in the past, and either the criminal walked free or the detective made the case badly and evidence was inadmissible and the killer walked free, or they got the wrong person. There could be all sorts of things where they're similar to the want, but they're slightly different. And these may not actually come out in the course of a short story, but you as the author, if you know them, then the character is going to be a deeper, more realized character for you, and that should come across in how you write that character. Question 8. Who or what is the primary obstacle for the main character to stop them getting from the inciting incident to the end of the story? So no story exists properly without conflict. If you have a story where someone's killed, the detective turns up at the scene and he's like a superhero version of Sherlock Holmes, and he looks at the crime scene and goes, oh yeah, that was Mr. Jones 3 doors down the block because of this and this. There's no story there because there's no conflict. It might be fascinating for about 10 seconds, and after that the reader will put that down and they won't feel any particular deep emotional satisfaction with that kind of story because the character hasn't overcome any obstacles. So that's what we identify here in question 8. And what you'll probably find out is that by identifying who that antagonist is, or sometimes it might be a thing or a weather or a physical obstacle, that will often suggest plot points or story moments in the journey from the start to the finish. So by answering all these questions without really thinking about the story in terms of plot points and stuff, we're thinking in much bolder colours, you'll actually get some of these ideas as you're answering the questions. Question 9. What's the one thing that must change for the main character to reach the final scene? Is it a realization? Is it a decision? Does he lose something that brings insight? Does he gain something? Is it a discovery? So something will happen that will make the journey from the inciting incident to the concluding scene and the emotional payoff for the reader will make that journey inevitable. So you've got to decide what that is. And in short stories, this is a quick writing note, you can have characters that don't really change, but something must change in the course of the story. So in the course, I've talked about crime fiction in a couple of the examples. In crime fiction, you often have, especially in short stories or novellas, you have someone like Sherlock Holmes, and they don't really change as a character. But society changes because they've identified someone who's committed a wrong or done something evil, and they're identified, and society is made safer because they're removed from society. So even if the main character himself, herself, doesn't change, something must change in the story as a result of what's happened in the course of the story. That leads us to the final question, question 10. What's at stake for the main character if they don't get to the final scene, or if they get to the final scene and they don't achieve what they've been trying to get from the story? What do they lose? What will continue to hurt them? What will remain broken? By answering these questions, and this relates to the character's need as well. So again, you've got these questions aren't just individual questions. Sometimes you might get to question 10 and go, oh, this relates to the character's need, and you have to go back and fill in some more detail on the character's need. If that happens, so be it. But what you want to know is what really the stake for the main character if he doesn't succeed, or the story may be that the main character doesn't succeed, and the main character loses. In those kind of stories, you don't want to be a total downer. So if that happens, you want your character to walk away older and wiser. So that may be what happens, and that may be the emotional movement that the reader takes away, that they're sad because the main character hasn't achieved the goal, but the main character is older and wiser, and they're uplifted by that. So identifying what's at stake for the main character in the story is another important factor. So by answering those 10 questions, and don't answer them with one-liners, answer them with complete paragraphs. Free writing is a great way of answering these questions, and just what you'll find is as you go through them, as you cycle through the questions, the story develops in your head. And if you get to question 10, and you've answered all the questions, what you should have is a main character, an ending or conclusion with a designed emotional charge for the reader, an inciting incident, stakes, wants and needs, and an antagonist. And so for a short story, you can probably go through those 10 questions with free writing in 15 or 20 minutes and come out with quite a detailed overview of what could go into being, which you could then take and develop and turn into a short story. Now, in future videos, the next 2 or 3 videos, I'm going to walk through some examples of this and actually generate some detailed story ideas, so that you can see this process in action. And then beyond that, I'm going to show you how you can, once you've developed once 10 answers to those questions, develop an idea you think, oh, I quite like this, the feel and sound of this. I'll show you how you can layer on story models and or story types so you can take it to the next level, and so you can actually get it to a point where you could go, I can actually start writing this. That's really cool, because the 10, and it will depend on what kind of writer you are. If you're more of a discovery writer, answering these 10 questions will give you enough material to start the inciting incident and just write your story. If you're more of an outliner, you'll probably need to go another level, and that's what I'll show in the next video, and I'll probably do 2 or 3 on this. Now, as I mentioned at the start, this came about from questions from the students or a couple of the students in the Writing Vault. This is a resource I'm putting together for beginner writers, frustrated writers, aspiring writers, a ton of resources, and I often use the questions that I get to fuel the kind of videos that I make, but I also give the students detailed answers to their questions and hopefully help them solve some of their writing problems. If you're in the Writing Vault, I'll do exactly the same for you. Check the resource out. The URL's there, and I'll put a link in the description below. If you want to email me and ask me questions about that, paul@deliberate-practice.com. That will get to me, and I'll answer you as soon as I can. Now that I've got 70 videos on the channel, you'll get much likelier to get a detailed and thoughtful response by emailing me than leaving comments, because the way the YouTube comment system works, it gets very difficult to find the comments on different videos and leave detailed comments. So send me an email is the best way to contact me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to go and subscribe to the email list, and you'll get the AI workflow that you can use to actually do this exercise yourself. Thank you for your time, and if you've got questions, don't hesitate to email me. I'll catch you in the next video, and I'm going to generate a story idea. I have no idea what it's going to be at this point in time. We'll find out in the next video.